So we're recording now. So this is,
hello, YouTube audience.
yeah, our YouTube audience. I'm like, what am I trying to say here?
What are you trying to say here, Mark? Hey, good day, YouTube audience, or good night, wherever you're at on this planet. We've got our good friend Cliff Hudson here, who was the CEO, chairman, and did just about everything else at Sonic you can possibly do over his tenure there. Cliff, we're happy to have you here, my friend.
Glad to be here, Adam. Thanks for having me on your show today.
Can I tell you?
I like that cup. I like that cup. That looks good.
The cherry limeade is the bomb. Yeah. So
yeah.
I'm more of the strawberry limeade. You know, where they crush those fresh strawberries in the bottom.
Yeah.
Or whatever that is. I don't know. I like that. Or the Blue Ocean slushy.
Oh, Mark, you got the menu memorized here.
Hey, when we were in high school and we would just go to the Sonic and there was like happy hour too, so it was just, why not?
Yeah, it's all good stuff. Sounds good.
And where else can you get tater tots at the drop of a hat?
Totally.
My favorite drink was probably fairly boring. That was either if I was going to have food, I like to diet Dr. Pepper with it. Otherwise, often I just do iced tea. The Sonic was a good place. You could get iced tea, went with anything, good stuff.
Oh yeah.
And but hardly drinkable, but very eatable was a banana shake, because you take that real vanilla ice cream and just whip a banana into it. That's how that was made.
Are you? Oh, really?
Is how that is made. It's not like a banana syrup. It is a real banana whipped into the ice cream.
That's
just
delicious.
Just delicious. Yeah.
Do you find yourself hankering
tomorrow now?
Yeah, right.
The whipped banana. Yeah. I didn't know that. Look at that. Hey, for all you YouTube subscribers, you're getting this secret menu stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, let's jump in.
Anything mixed with ice cream is pretty good. So whatever it is. So
that is true.
That's fantastic. I'll tell you that, I love being a CEO of a real estate company, but there's something to be said for being a CEO of a food company.
Yeah. I had a board of directors more than one time accuse me of bringing in, sweet stuff just at a strategic moment, when I needed to redirect the board for what they're otherwise trying to focus on, so.
Writing this down right now, Cliff.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Secrets of the chairman.
Right.
So cool. All right. Hey, Mark, you want to roll some music for us?
Let's kick off this podcast and get into this interview. Here we go.
Right.
Every day is filled with choices. You're here because you're choosing to start with a win. Get ready to be inspired, learn something new, and connect with the Win Nation.
Coming to you from Remax World Headquarters, Denver, Colorado. Adam Contos, CEO here with Start With a Win. We have on the other side of this virtual studio, producer Mark. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing so good. Not as good as you with your cherry limeade over there.
Tell me a cherry limeade. I mean, there's product placement is everything. I need a shelf to put it.
If you're just listening to this podcast, Adam has this delicious large cherry limeade. Go over on YouTube and watch this episode.
Well, and Mark, I have the cherry limeade for a very special reason. Okay, I mean, we have a very special guest today. We have the former chairman, former CEO, did just about everything else in the company for decades at Sonic, Mr. Cliff Hudson. How you doing, my friend?
Doing great. Adam, great to be with you on the show today. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's my pleasure. And, you've been such an inspiration to me over the years. CEOs follow good CEOs, and it's been really cool to watch you. And you just put out a new book recently. Master of None is how
Master of None. Yeah, Master of None. Subtitle, critical part of it too. How a jack of all trades can still reach the top, which I think is a pretty good description of my background and my path. So,
well, why don't you tell us about that? Well, I mean, jack of all trades, how a jack of all trades can reach the top, because so many people in life, we've got some people call it, like a surgeon or, and I know you're an attorney by education, by trade a little bit, things like, a lot of people pick this path in life, but how can you, if you've been a jack of all trades, figure out how to find this massive amount of success like what you found? Give us a little history on your thought behind that.
Well, I think in some ways, I think the jack of all trades is a contributor to success. But from my standpoint, running a franchise organization for 23 years to be exact, I think did require the development of skills over time. There's no doubt, and I think the whole focus of the book for the average reader, if a person is thinking about becoming a brain surgeon or something that requires a very, very high level of specialty, then I think having a great degree of focus and developing that specialty is critical to their career. But most people aren't going to become brain surgeons, and I also think many people, particularly if they do have a head construct that's more of a generalist, and they do enjoy a variety of things in life, they may not know really what path they want to be on for a number of years. And so to a great degree, when I say a number of years, I'm talking, 25, 30 years old, and older. So I think having good basic preparation, good education, learn how to be a good thinker, critical analysis, broad understanding of the world. These are all good things that no matter what path you go down, they're good preparation, but they also give you an appreciation for a variety of paths instead of a single path you're going to focus on. But also, I think the world around us is changing rapidly enough, particularly because of technology. Even if you want to go into technology, I mean, the idea of focusing on one area of technology and becoming getting a high degree of specialty, only to see that change, underneath, shift underneath you in a short period of time, is a real possibility, and not just a possibility; it's happening daily. So the thought really is about good general preparation, good general education, critical thinking skills, awareness of the world, and if you have interest in a broad variety of things, pursue a variety of interests. Don't just pursue one. Because I think pursuing one can actually dull your senses rather than sharpen them. So these are the ideas.
I love that, and I'm just sitting here kind of unpacking the depth of what you're saying right now. You started as an attorney in your professional life. You were an attorney in your mid to late 20s, and that's when you started working with Sonic. Is that correct?
That's correct. And my undergraduate work before then. Nothing against accounting, just a question of whether it works for you, But my dad did say to me when I was in college, if you think about going to law school, these guys that have CPA and law degree, it's really a strong combination. So I enrolled in an accounting course, and I went one day. And I dropped the course the next day and picked up a cultural anthropology course. So, I mean, it really it could be more different. I don't know what it would be to be more different than the accounting class, but that really was not for me. I ended up being a history major, which I enjoyed then, I enjoy now. And you can see in the book references to various historical figures and how they represent good leadership models for anyone in a leadership position or anyone who aspires to be in a leadership position. So I did study history, and as I said, reading history now. Just finished the biography of James Baker that's just out. It's really a wonderful book by Peter Baker and unrelated. But at any rate, so history into law, not knowing what path I wanted to go down. In law school, I to my surprise, I enjoyed business law more than I had any idea I would. Never didn't intend to go that path, but you had to take corporations law and advisable to take tax law and so on. So I ended up taking securities law, business planning, and just thoroughly enjoyed it. And did that in private practice for a few years, then became general counsel of Sonic, a pretty stunning move at a pretty young age. I was 29 years old when I became general counsel of Sonic. And then from there, just got into the business in a big way and learned the business and gradually grew out of the business, you might say. But yes, law was my path, and there was some degree of specialty, but I think that provided a path to becoming more of a generalist over time.
I love that. And you always talk about exploring. You talk about exploring in the book and, seeking more knowledge, which gets you to that jack of all trades mindset of not being afraid of breaking outside of your space, which I think a lot of people, they classify themselves as an attorney, as a, maybe I came from law enforcement. So a lot of people in law enforcement, are like, well, I'm a cop, I don't know anything else. But the reality is you have the opportunity to be other things. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And I think the mindset that's very helpful in broadening a person's perspective is to pursue the natural curiosity you have about any number of things in life. And when something strikes you as being interesting, the fact that you don't have expertise in it, or the fact that it's not your immediate area of responsibility, if you're within an organization, doesn't mean you shouldn't pursue it. And particularly if it is something that clicks for you, and people, you can tell that. I mean, it may not be something you've formally studied, but your thought is, this is an area that feels right for me, and I'd like to learn more about it. Then pursue it. It's not going to make you a poorer employee rather, and it's not going to make you a less interesting person. I mean, just the opposite. So I think this idea of open to opportunity, naturally curious, and when things do appeal to you, there's a reason for that, and pursue it on some level or another, and it will make you a richer person.
Do you think people have this like underlying fear of going out and pursuing those things? I mean, it seems like people are hesitant to do that sometimes. What can you get them off the dime with, and to start, to tomorrow go out and say, hey, it's 2021, go learn something new and see if you'll fall in love with it? I mean, how do you get somebody to do that? Have you ever experienced
Well,
that?
I suppose part of this the answer is yes. I think a lot of people are, and maybe they are for for varying reasons. Part of this may depend upon their employer, and whether their employer encourages that kind of exploration, or whether the employer, discourages it. And an employer that discourages it, I think, does everyone a disservice, because not only does it squelch creativity when an employer has that attitude, but it also means a less well-developed employee. So an employer's attitude, and it's not just a question of feedback, telling somebody to do it or not to do it, but rather what kind of place of employment do you create that has a kind of openness and exchange and ready involvement, or activities within the organization that are interdisciplinary and give people focus to other areas of responsibility beyond their own immediate responsibility, so that they can develop. So a lot of it, I think, speaking about the development or the leadership development within organizations, a lot of it does have to do with the culture of an organization, whether it permits a person to go down that path.
That's a great point, which kind of moves me to my next thought to kind of dig into here. The difference between specializing and generalizing, and an employer encouraging that, because you look at like a succession plan in a business, or a succession plan for a leader, which is really important, obviously, to a leader, is to build a successor, but you don't know what they don't know. We've, we're a public company. I mean, a big corporation like you guys, and you look at it and you go, my job is to develop leaders, but not necessarily doing exactly what they're doing. I mean, do you think that's it kind of gets uncomfortable for a leader to think that, but you've got to go into it and go, I'm comfortable with it, and I want to encourage that. Is that something you encountered during your time as a CEO, is trying to drive leadership development?
Well, yes, absolutely. And we worked really to do that at all levels. But specifically as it relates to succession planning, one of the methods that I utilize sometimes a board member can say, who is your successor? And I always, I've worked over time, and with some refinement, I worked over time to stay away from that discussion. My discussion with my board was, here is a layout of the 1, 2, or 3 people that are senior in the organization, most likely report to me, but senior in the organization who have the potential of having my job someday. And so by lining out in that way, it wasn't so much to say to the board, because I think I don't even think it's a good approach, with some exceptions. I mean, if there really is a person that you know is going to succeed you, and the nature, either the CEO of the organization necessitates that kind of specificity. But aside from that, the opportunity to develop several candidates is a good idea anyway. There is more than one person likely would like to have the CEO job. So lining up those folks, not literally, but lining out their characteristics. What I did with my board was say, here are 6 or 7 fields, like salesmanship or integrity, leading with integrity. Here are 6 or 7 characteristics that I think you as a board should be looking to in assessing my successor. And then I would go through with each of these candidates, with the board in private, a discussion about those characteristics with each of the three individuals, and talk about which one of them were stronger in one area versus another. And to the extent there was you might say a weakness, but a gap, to the extent there was a gap with one of them in one of these fields, then my job, along with my human resource director, my job was to help them develop their skills to close that gap. And so this was the process we utilized, and it really didn't pit anyone against another person. Rather, it was an attempt to strengthen all of them.
Great concept, great philosophy. I love that. You're really you're coaching them through their personal development. It seems, more than anything, which really we know a great leader is a great coach. So, and you talked, I've heard you talk about how you didn't know anything about marketing. I mean, you were an attorney, got into being the CFO, things like that, but you had to learn marketing, which, that's an example of becoming a generalist, right? How did you discover what you need to learn when you need to become a generalist? The marketing thing in particular is a funny thing because, Sonic was a marketing-driven chain. It was a marketing-driven business. It was 95% franchise operations. And so most of the operating of drive-ins or restaurants and the interface with consumers or customers was done through third parties, i.e. franchisees. So our job to the greatest degree was marketing, purchasing, distribution, and ultimately, development of technology initiatives. So, I think in terms of, I think to some degree, though I never studied marketing, I think I quite apparently came in with some understanding or some basic understanding of key messaging. Well, I should say first, targeted, who is my consumer, who is my customer, how do I target them, what's my messaging, and what does success look like? And so I think I had some of that intuitively as a young person. I can look back and see circumstances in which I exercised that far better than my peers. But it took me a number of years, and I had good marketing people inside and outside the company. It took me a number of years to trust my own instincts about these things. And so over time, I probably stepped in, played more of a role than my CMO wanted me to play. But that's life, but it was also an area that I enjoyed in terms of anything that would have surprised me. I got into a lot of accounting over the years in spite of my earlier story, but the areas I got into, investor relations and accounting and purchasing and distribution, technology, marketing generally, followed by technology. Marketing generally was something I think I developed some pretty good expertise in, had a big impact on the business, and enjoyed it. Awesome.
It was
Yeah,
all it was all OJT. It was all OJT.
That's it. And that's one of the things I love about franchising. And, we're 100% franchise. We have 2 franchise brands, Remax and Motto Mortgage. And I'm part of the International Franchise Association. It's kind of fun in this space because you get to be that generalist and kind of bounce around. But at the same time, you also, and this leads me to my next question, you kind of fall into this rut a little bit of, okay, you see the challenges of business. And I actually zoomed into one of our franchisees this morning and discussed this during a business planning seminar. You start seeing challenges more than anything else. And one of the things that you point out in your leadership and your experience is start looking for the opportunities. How do you keep people focused on that mindset shift? Because it's a fear versus love, or a closed versus open, or limited versus unlimited mindset. As a leader, how can you what advice do you have for us on how to keep going in the right direction?
Well, that's a good question, and I think you can come at it from a variety of directions. My background in history, I would say, going back centuries, some of the earliest historians and historian philosophers would say, the changes that are going to occur and you've got to confront are not periodic. They're constant. That life is change, and there's small ways or big ways. Life is change, and Benjamin Franklin had the comment that when you're finished changing, you're finished. That was his one of his many quotes, which I thought was a good one. But because of that, I think then when we look at an organization, and particularly the job of management, the job isn't to avoid changes. The job isn't to sidestep things. As senior management in particular, your job is to deal with those changes, deal with the challenges, or as you might say, deal with the opportunities. And the reason that's a critical viewpoint, I think, is because if you view it as an opportunity, then you're going to confront it differently and confront it more, I think, optimistically, and make something good out of it. I'm sure in your business, you've seen any number of times over the years, something initially looked like a real problem. Once your group got to it and figured out a way to approach it, you may have not only fixed the problem, you really created a great opportunity. And if I can maybe try in 1 minute tell one of my favorite stories about Sonic.
Sure.
Was we had operators who really wanted to keep their marketing local, and so almost all the marketing money, let's say 1999, I've been CEO about 3 or 4 years, almost all the money was spent locally. I shouldn't say almost, it really was all spent locally, all the media dollars. And we had a promotion that didn't work, and the product that was left over is frozen shrimp. And so, okay, well, if you don't use paper goods, you just stick them in a warehouse and wait, If you didn't use all your straws, you stick them in their warehouse and wait. Well, if you didn't sell the shrimp, you can't wait, and it's not going to get better by waiting, You got a certain shelf life on the shrimp, you got to move it out. So we ended up trying to find a way, without having a big write-off, how we could move this shrimp. And what happened in the way we got it solved was through bartering it with third parties. And we didn't get cash for our shrimp, we got media. We got media from Turner Broadcasting. And so the next thing you know, here our brand was on some national sporting events. And our franchise operators did backflips. And so their question was, not where did that come from? Their question was, how do we get more of that? So our answer was, well, we can show you how to get more. And so it began a process of getting them first to agree to a half percentage point, then a full percentage point, and then 2 percentage points into a national fund, which almost 15 years later finally reached a point where about 85% of their contribution went into a national fund, 15% local. Changed the business, fundamentally changed the business. Never would have become a national brand without that changing. And yet it was a fluke. It was a problem. How do we avoid, at that time, I think a $400,000 write-off on shrimp? How do we avoid a write-off? And the solution opened our world. It was fantastic.
What a great story.
Yeah.
We I tell you what, magic of national advertising, right? I know my CFO is going to be listening, or CMO is going to be listening to this going, yes, because when we went national advertising, which was in the 80s, it really blew up the company as well. So
yeah, it makes all the difference in the world. Sure.
Oh, totally. So, Cliff, there have been a lot of great lessons in this discussion we've had here, and I sincerely appreciate you spending the time with us. I do have a final question for you, though, that we ask every one of our guests that our listeners love to hear from our leaders that we have on the show, and that's Cliff. How do you start your day with a win?
Well, that's an interesting question, Adam, and I think for an active person, in particular, leader of people, leader organization, it's a good question to ask and a good question to have an answer to. I think that I would say my number one thing, over the decades that I was providing corporate leadership, my start of my day to have a win was to get up early and get moving. And I almost invariably start my day with exercise. And so you may say, well, that's not that unusual. Well, okay, maybe it's not. But I think it's the critical part of it is obvious. It's great for the body, and it's great for the mind. In my case, the exercise that I engaged in for decades and still do is swimming. And one of the great things about swimming, depending on how much you do or don't want to focus on your strokes and your kick and so on, is you can focus on your day and then focus on where you are, what happened yesterday, things coming up. And invariably, going through that process in the morning, I came out of the pool with a much more orderly head, than how I went into the pool. And so helping me get focus on the day and get the juices flowing, literally, but oxygen pumped to the brain, and spending that time focusing on what was ahead of me today made all the difference in my world. In some ways, it was a real lifesaver over those decades. And but if you can't, if whatever that is for you, a person, I think getting up, getting moving, get oxygen to the brain, and getting your head organized on the day is a critical piece to a successful day.
Wow. Great lessons there, Cliff. Thank you for being on the show. Make sure you check out Cliff Hudson's book, Master of None, wherever you get your favorite books. I tell you what, some great business life and personal reflection stories. So thank you again for being on Start With a Win, and we appreciate all that you do.
Adam, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. It's my pleasure.
And thank you so much for listening to Start With the Win. If you'd like to ask Adam a question or tell us your Start With the Win story, give us a call and leave us a message at 888-581-4430. Don't forget to go on to iTunes and subscribe, write a review, and rate the show. For more great content, head over to startwiththewin.com. Follow Adam on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And remember, start with a win.
Are we on YouTube?
Yeah. We're on YouTube now. So
look at that.
Okay.
Now we're talking to our YouTube audience here. Cliff, I had a question for you. Did you think when you were younger, because it seems like you started working with Sonic when you were super young. So when you got that job, were you just excited to be working for that brand? And how big was Sonic at that point when you started working with him?
Well, it's an interesting question in reverse order, in particular, because it was much smaller when I left Sonic. It was about 3,600 stores. When I joined the company, it was about 1,000. And the reason it's a critical point is because it had gone through a big decline. It had been 1,300 stores and actually declined to about 970 or something. So it wasn't quite 1,000. And I'd say, like the year before, the accounting concept here, the year before I joined the company had gotten a opinion from its auditors, a question of whether it would be a going concern, a year later. So it was a real bottom point for the brand when I joined it. So what was my view in joining it? Well, critical point in time in my life. So Oklahoma City, 1982. Why is that a critical point? Because it was the beginning of an oil bust that probably inflicted about a 10-year literal depression on North Texas and Oklahoma and parts of Arkansas and Louisiana and so on. And so I was in private law practice, but it was turning fast and turning, not in a good way,
right?
Because of that turn in the economy. So the fact that I was with a small law firm I thought would be a ground floor opportunity to grow into a big law firm, and suddenly, if I wanted to stay with that firm, I was probably going to do creditor rights work, meaning chasing people who can't pay their bills.
Yeah.
And I don't mean small things. We're probably talking about corporate bankruptcies and so on.
Yeah.
But my reaction was, I don't think I want to do that, And so I joined this company that was at a bottom point, new CEO. I was 29, CEO was 36. I thought he was an old guy, And so it was a fresh opportunity, and one which I was excited about because I was going to be inside of the company and have one client, and I was going to really be able to learn the client. So, but I've got a question for you, Mark.
Yeah, what's that?
Is that a Fender Telecaster on the wall?
That is a Fender Telecaster right there, USA made 2005, I think.
Yeah, that's a nice looking guitar.
Thank you.
That's a nice looking guitar. And
I was in a Christian rock band in a former life, so.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Dabbled.
But I'll tell you something about my music piece. We had a sonic band called the Sonic Tones. How you like that?
Oh, nice.
And we played at the annual battle of the corporate bands in 2003. Battle of corporate bands at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay, nice. What do you play? Do you play guitar?
I play guitar and a little bit of keyboards, and everything we did was 3-part harmonies. So now you get more into my jack of all trades here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Telecaster. I also have a really nice emerald green Fender Deluxe amp, which sounds amazing with the Tele. So that's good. I also have this really cool. Here, I'll show you.
I see you've got a couple of acoustics. There you go.
So Mark was on American Idol, by the way.
Wow.
He made it to Hollywood.
This is a 1908 Stahl guitar.
Wow.
This guitar maker came from Germany back in the early 1900s and made this guitar. My dad was in Gruen's, which is a guitar spot in Nashville, back in the late 70s, and he picked this guy up, and he gave it to me. Which
the front almost looks like something before Willie Nelson beat it up. I mean, for his that blonde acoustic, or rather, what am I trying to say? The blonde acoustic guitar that he has with the catgut strings or whatever they are. So, that's beautiful.
That's a cool one.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
I've still got my 1973 Ovation Balladeer.
Okay,
so, which I bought new, whatever that was, 47 years ago. So
it's a great sounding guitar.
It's still a beautiful guitar. Amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey, thank you guys for being a part of the show. Make sure you click that subscribe button, click that bell that you get notified every time you get a new episode released, and click that thumbs up if you like this content. So that's it. Cliff, thanks so much for being on Start With a Win, and we'll see you when we see you.